Hello and welcome to our next topic, water and soil pollution. In our previous topic, we studied about air pollution, the causes of air pollution, the impact and the preventive measures that we could take to curb air pollution. In today's topic, we shall be studying the same about water and soil pollution, the causes of water pollution, the impact of water pollution, and the control measures that need to be adopted to curb water and soil pollution. Water, as we know, is the primary reason to sustain life on earth, the aquatic life or the terrestrial life. There's a famous saying, not a famous saying, it's a very scientific saying: water is a universal solvent. Water is a universal solvent. It really is. And this is a famous saying, it's the elixir of life, which means this thing sustains life on earth. So the pollution of the same, as we can look into this picture, is rather a sad sight. And the picture we look on the right is soil pollution. Things that never decompose are thrown into the soil only for the soil to suffer at large. Let's begin with water pollution. The World Health Organization says that polluted water is water whose composition has been changed to an extent that it is unusable. So water that used to be a universal solvent has become unusable. Why? Because a lot of pollutants have entered into it. So that's the definition that the World Health Organization gives to polluted water. In other words, it is the toxic water that cannot be drunk or used for essential purposes like agriculture. And this water is not only not useful for any purpose, but it's also very harmful as it causes diseases like diarrhea, cholera, dysentery, typhoid, poliomyelitis, and these diseases kill more than 5 lakh people every year. Something we talked in our last topic about right to life. So is not being losing life because of bad water against our fundamental right? The main water pollutant includes bacteria, virus, parasites, fertilizers, very important, pesticides, pharmaceutical products, nitrates, phosphates, plastics, very, very important, fecal waste, and even radioactive substances. Fertilizers, pesticides, pharmaceutical products, plastics, fecal waste, and let me add undischarged solvents from industries into water bodies. These things that I just ticked are the major cause that our river, holy river Ganga, is being polluted. There's a major Ganga action plan going on at play, but we know what's happening with that as well. Water pollution. The main reason that we have a very poor quality of water is sadly human activity. Nature has a very little role to play in harming itself. It's mostly human activity. Now let's take an example of how we are affecting water pollution even indirectly. We might think that the car that we are using will only pollute the air if we are using it for a long term. It's only going to pollute the atmosphere by releasing the combustible waste that is being generated by the combustion of fossil fuels. But no, the rising global temperatures caused by CO2 emissions heat the water. And when the water is heated, its oxygen content decreases. Now, who is that going to affect? That's going to affect the aquatic life. So, something as indirect as a car's emission, which is just releasing carbon dioxide into the air and increasing the temperature of the atmosphere generally. Would that atmosphere not ever come in touch with water? Of course it will. We have studied that biotic and abiotic components, the structural units of an ecosystem, are constantly intermingling with each other. So when the heat is there in the atmosphere, that heat will come to water. And when the heat comes into water, the oxygen content of the water falls. Next, chemical dumping from industry, agriculture, and livestock farming sectors is one of the main causes of eutrophication of water. Eutrophication of water again means that a lot of chemical component high coming from industrial wastes. Those industrial waste could be agricultural waste as well, livestock farming where you keep poultry, you keep cows, you do livestock farming. All of that again is very water intensive industry. It not only consumes a lot of water, but when it releases that water, it's very polluted. Fecal water dumping. Imagine the sewage water is not treated properly and it's just being dumped into the water bodies. Today we will in this module also study about grey water. We will also understand what we can do to reduce at least this fecal water dumping, how we can have better sewage treatments, because the United Nations says that more than 80% of the world's sewage finds its way into the seas and rivers untreated. Imagine the fecal waste that goes from our sewage, 80% of it goes untreated into the seas and rivers. Maritime traffic, the ships, the cargo ships, the tankers and everything. And when the oil spills happen, you know that, let's say, this is a glass of water. Let's say if I'll put oil drops on it, it will form a layer, because oil and water are not miscible with each other, right? So when similarly at a larger level the oil spills happen in seas and in oceans because of the transportation of oil. Now some countries do not produce oil, whereas some countries like the Gulf countries produce oil at a very high rate. So there has to be a transport of oil, and when it's not done properly, leakages happen and they pollute our water resources. Next, deteriorating water quality is damaging the environment, health conditions, and global economy. Of course, everything that's wrong with climate change is going to have an adverse impact on the environment, on human health, and the global economy. This is a given. The former president of the World Bank, David Malpass, warned of the economic impact. He said, deteriorating water quality is stalling economic growth and exacerbating poverty in many countries. Now, we might think that how can water pollution affect the economy? But it does. Countries that will not have water, countries that will have more droughts, countries that will not have good crops. How is, especially India, who's mainly dependent on an agrarian economy, how can you expect economic growth? Of course, there's going to be poverty. Of course, we are seeing the plight of farmers. Destruction of biodiversity, the impact of water pollution on biodiversity. Water pollution depletes aquatic ecosystems, like we just studied, because the temperature of water increases. It depletes ecosystems and triggers an unbridled proliferation of phytoplanktons in lakes, which is eutrophication. Now, when there's a lot of chemical water, nature again being nature and a self-curer of many harms, it has certain phytoplanktons which thrive on such chemical water. Now, when the chemical content of water increases, there will be an unbridled proliferation, unbridled growth of phytoplanktons in such lakes. It happened in the Dal Lake of Srinagar. Eutrophication is the process where a body of water becomes excessively enriched with nutrients. Nutrients are mostly chemicals, nitrogen and phosphorus chemicals. This enrichment leads to an increased growth of aquatic plants, especially algae, is important, leading in an algal bloom, reducing water clarity and oxygen depletion. Now, all these algae and aquatic phytoplanktons that grow, they thrive on these chemicals and also of course on oxygen, and when there'll be a lot in number, water's clarity is going to go down. The clear streams that we used to see are going to be shabby, muddy, mulky, green, and oxygen depletion of course. This is eutrophication. You can write this happened in Dal Lake as well, the famous tourist lake. Water pollution, contamination of the food chain. Again, food chain, like we studied, is one of the functional units. Wait, just a second. Food chain is one of the functional units of the ecosystem, and if one part of the food chain is disrupted, it leads to pollution of the entire food chain's contamination. Fishing in polluted waters and the use of water for livestock farming and agriculture introduces toxins into the foods, which are then harmful for our health when we eat it. Lack of potable water. The UN says that billions of people around the world have no access to clean water to drink or sanitation, particularly in rural areas. In this comes very handy, sadly for not a good reason, the case study of a village of Maharashtra. The name of the village is Latur. You might have heard about it. It was in the news in 2016 to almost 2019, not 2018. For 2 years it was quite in news because this Latur from Maharashtra, it became the epicenter of the worst drought-driven water crisis. Epicenter of the worst drought-driven water crisis in India's history. Now, like we studied here, that the UN has said that billions of people around the world will have currently no access to clean water to drink or for sanitation, particularly in the rural areas. So Latur is one such rural area where, because of the over extraction of groundwater and the contamination of the water that was being released, so it happens both ways. You are also extracting the groundwater. You were growing a lot of sugarcane because of, now sugarcane is a water intensive crop. It uses a lot of groundwater, and when the factories around are releasing water back into the rivers, it's untreated, dirty water. So the poor waste management of the factories and the intensively water dependent growth of crops led to the worst drought in India in the district of Latur. Now, what happened here was that the drought was so bad that an emergency was declared because they said that people don't have water. The drought was so severe that the local governments had to impose 144 of the Code of Criminal Procedure. Now, what is this? This is, you prevent the gathering of people around, and you say that gatherings are not allowed. If you gather, it would be an unlawful assembly. Why was this imposed? This was imposed so that people don't riot over the water bodies. Wherever a little water body as simple as a well was found or a stream was found, 144 was imposed in that water body area so that people should not come over there and fight for water. Another fact that comes from 2016 Latur district is that there was a special train that was allotted to carry water daily from Miraj in Kolhapur to Latur, and this train made roughly 100 trips carrying just 2.5 million liters of water daily. This was the water it was carrying daily, and it took almost 100 trips. That's the scarcity we faced. People did not have water to drink. 1 in 5 people had no access to clean water to drink or sanitation, like the UN has said would happen. Diseases again. The World Health Organization estimates that about 2 billion people have no option but to drink contaminated water. There's no option. That's the fate of these 2 billion people. In the population of roughly 7 billion, that's the fate of these 2 billion people. Infant mortality again, diarrheal diseases, lack of hygiene cause death in children worldwide because their gut is not so competent to fight all these bacteria and viruses in water. So they fall prey to such water. Water pollution. Every drop of polluted water today is an irreparable loss for tomorrow. Here are a few things which we must prevent to pollute water, as simple as again reduce. Now all the causes that were there for water pollution, if being curbed, would become the reason for saving water from being polluted. These are again a few other measures that should be followed to prevent water pollution. Trivia time. When is World Water Day? I'll give you the answer at the end of this topic. Coming next to soil pollution. Some of the most hazardous soil pollutants are xenobiotics. What are xenobiotics? Xeno, in its simple meaning, means a foreign substance. Xenobiotics are known to be carcinogenic. Now, these foreign elements that, so the natural composition of soil has to be something that has nutrients, right? Not something that is carcinogenic, not something that has, like we mentioned earlier in this picture. Now this battery that's present in the soil is not a natural component of the soil, it's a foreign element. So heavy metals, hydrocarbons, others, mineral oils, major soil pollutants. The discharge of industrial waste into the soils resulting soil pollution. Some common soil pollutants can be sourced from industrial waste are listed below. As you can see, chlorinated industries. So the industries, especially the heavy metal industries, throw their waste products in a very not so efficient waste management ways, which tend to pollute soil, dumping grounds with chlorinated industrial solvents, with dioxins which are produced from the manufacturing of pesticides. The use of pesticides also pollutes the soil, but the manufacture of pesticides releases dioxins which also pollutes the soil. Plasticizers, the tiny microplastics, the dispersants, polychlorinated biphenyls, again all of these are industrial wastes that pollute the soil. Why does this happen? Because of poor waste management. The petroleum industry creates many petroleum hydrocarbon based products benzene, methyl benzene are carcinogenic in nature. Soil pollution. Like I said, not only the manufacture of pesticides, but also the use of these things for enhancing crop production ultimately leads unintentional, uncontrolled, excessive use of these, commonly known as the pesticide drift, leads to water pollution and soil pollution. Now it's a vicious cycle. Soil की quality ऑलरेडी डाउन है, उसको आप ठीक करने के लिए केमिकल्स डाल रहे हो, थोड़ी देर के लिए क्रॉप अच्छी हो जाती है, बट एवेंचुअली सॉइल की क्वालिटी और ख़राब हो जाती है. उससे क्या होना है, आपकी अगली बार की क्रॉप फिर ख़राब आएगी, फिर आपको लगेगा हो सॉइल की क्वालिटी ख़राब है, केमिकल डालते हैं. सो यू आर स्टक इन दिस विशियस साइकिल because you are not letting nature do the nutrient cycling, the process that we started in our first module. We are tampering, we are hampering, we are interfering with nature's processes to replenish its soil. We're interfering with the use of chemicals because we have that monkey mentality. We need quick results. We're not going to wait कि ठीक है, it's not the season of this crop, let's not grow it. It's not the season of this vegetable, let's not grow it. For commercial purposes, we grow crops out of season based on injections, based on pesticides, reducing the quality of food, reducing the quality of soil, and ultimately leading to health hazards, and health hazards as severe as the diseases of central nervous system, immune system, cancer, and birth defects. Almost all cases of soil pollution are anthropogenic in nature. Credit goes to the humans. Anthropogenic is human made. A variety of human activities can lead to the contamination of soil. What are these activities apart from fueling the soil with insecticide, pesticide, herbicide? What are the other things that we do? We demolish old buildings. Do we even care to pick up that debris and dispose it off properly, incinerate it properly? No. And that old building that was demolished, which had a lot of cement in it, which had a lot of paint in it, which had a lot of steel in it, iron in it, contaminates the nearby soil with asbestos. We don't treat things, we just break things, demolish things, and build next things, not caring about what effect that activity is having on the environment. Usage of lead-based paint during construction. The lead-based batteries were enough to demolish the quality of soil, that we also now use lead-based paint during construction activities. Again, pollute the hazardous concentrations of lead. They produce a hazardous concentration of lead and pollute the soil. Activities associated with metal casting factories, the foundries, often cause dispersion of metallic contaminants into nearby soils, and all of these things lead to central nervous system diseases, lead to immune system diseases, lead to carcinogenic cases. Underground mining activities. Underground mining activities. People don't, I can speak from the point of law that some people don't even get the sanction because the clearance authorities tell them that this is an activity which is going to cause a lot of contamination of the land and disrupt the ecosystem of the place, but a lot of illegal mining is happening. Improper disposal of the highly toxic industrial chemical waste can severely pollute the soil. For example, storage of toxic waste in landfills, like the garbage landfill I mentioned, is there on the outskirts of Delhi. Now, when it rains, it's but obvious that all the not so nice things that are there in that landfill are going to seep deep into the soil and even deeper into the water. So it's going to seep into the soil and also pollute onto the groundwater. The chemical pesticides contain several hazardous chemicals. Excessive and insufficient use of chemical pesticides results in severe, of course, like we studied earlier, that the pesticide drift. These wastes may also contain several carcinogenic substances. Now that we know how soil pollution is caused and what harmful effect it has on our health, on the biodiversity, what are the control measures that can be adopted? Something as simple as let's dispose of our waste, the residential waste, in a proper manner. Let's keep the fruit and vegetable leftovers aside and dump them in a biodegradable dump that we have at the backyard of our house. Let's not use plastic. Let's not dump plastic into the soil because it not even takes a million of years to break down. It does not even break down. And then at the industrial level, the use of toxic substances can be avoided with better suitable alternatives. Recycling of the recycling, these three R's that we have, recycle, reduce, and reuse, are not just fun words. They have to be put into action. We need to promote healthy agricultural practices, organic manure, organic farming. It's going to help the nature and us as well. We need to reduce the chemical fertilizers. Efficient and limited use of chemical pesticides must also be advocated. Now, before we end the topic of water pollution and soil pollution, let's go back to the trivia time. So, when do you think is World Water Day? It's on March 22. I hope there was something you can take away from this topic and do your bit to reduce water pollution, to help replenish water, and to avoid causing soil pollution. Thank you. I'll see you in the next topic.